George Russell won the Australian Grand Prix. Mercedes won the Constructor Trophy and finished first and second position on the very first race of the new era. On paper, a perfect start. But the fastest man on the grid started from 20th place and called what happened chaos. The reigning world champion said the racing was very artificial. And one driver spent 20 laps trying to pass a single car, then described it like being an F1 while everyone else was an F2. So here's the real question from Melbourne. Did Formula One just put on the most exciting opening lap in a decade? Or did it accidentally reveal a problem that could define the entire 2026 season? So come with me as we try to understand exactly what went right, what went badly wrong, and what the FIA has to fix before this gets worse. Before that, if you are new here, please subscribe. That really motivates me to work more on such a video. Let's start with the moment that had the whole paddock talking. Nobody predicted the first lap would look like that. Charles Leclerc launched from fourth on the grid, and by the first corner, he was leading the race. He didn't just beat the cars next to him, he flew past pole sitter George Russell and Kimi Antonelli like they were standing still. And in a way, they almost were. Russell admitted after the race that he and Antonelli had almost no battery power when the lights went out. The formation lap drained their energy, and they arrived at the start line with almost nothing left to deploy. For Mercedes, the team that was supposed to dominate, both drivers were essentially sitting ducks off the line. Meanwhile, Ferrari's smaller turbo design, the engineering decision everyone noticed in testing, paid off immediately and dramatically. Ferrari built their engine specifically to spool up faster, with less turbo lag, giving Leclerc and Hamilton explosive launches that no other team could match. And then before the first lap was even finished, Lando Norris was nearly involved in a crash that McLaren's Andrea Stella later called a near miss with huge speed differentials. Colapinto somehow squeezed his car through a gap between Lawson's stationary racing bull and the pit wall at the last possible second. And Fernando Alonso, in a Honda engine that barely worked in testing, charged from 17th to 10th in the opening 2 laps. All of that happened before lap 2. The problem is, what came after that opening burst is where things got complicated. The first half of the Australian Grand Prix was genuinely exciting. Leclerc and Russell traded the lead multiple times, outbraking each other into turn 1, fighting wheel to wheel through the middle sector. Leclerc even made a Mario Kart reference on team radio, comparing the overtake energy boost to a mushroom power-up. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. F1 reported 120 passes in Melbourne compared to 45 last year. But here's the part that needs to be said honestly. How many of those passes were real? Because what drivers described after the race paints a very different picture to those headline numbers. Norris said you can get overtaken by 5 cars and do absolutely nothing about it. Ocon called it painful and very frustrating, permanently managing battery, waiting for the rival you just passed to simply drive past you again on the next straight. Oliver Behrman said when his battery deployment was higher, it felt like he was in F1 and everyone else was in F2, and then he was dead on the next straight. And Behrman spent 20 laps trying to pass Arvid Lindblad, not because Lindblad was brilliant at defending, but because the energy dynamics made a pass nearly impossible to make stick. That is not racing. That is energy management, with cars occasionally getting close to each other. And here's the uncomfortable truth that the 120 passes headline doesn't tell you. Many of those moves were just cars swapping positions back and forth on straights depending on who had more battery charge. Not because one driver was braver, not because of strategy, because of electrons. Here's where this goes beyond opinions about racing quality. Norris issued a direct warning after the race. He said there will be a big accident because the closing speeds between a car deploying full energy and one that has run out can reach 50 kilometers per hour. He did not say it might happen. He said it will happen. And he added that a car going over a fence and into a crowd is the worst case scenario. That is a very serious statement from a world champion, and it cannot be brushed aside. The problem is structural. When a car deploys its energy and the car behind has none left, the speed differential is sudden and enormous. In Melbourne, drivers were already finding this sketchy through the kinked straight section, where active aero drops into low downforce mode simultaneously. The FIA actually removed that straight mode zone before FP3, then reinstated it before the session started after pushback from teams. Carlos Sainz called it really sketchy and really dangerous. George Russell wants the front wing to reduce less aggressively in straight mode because he said it felt like his front wing wasn't working. These are not minor complaints. These are the drivers telling the rule makers, in the politest possible terms, that something needs to change before someone gets seriously hurt. Now let's be fair, because not everything in Melbourne was a problem. The cars can follow each other. That was visible all race long, and it is genuinely significant. In the previous regulations, following closely through turn 9 or turn 10 was nearly impossible. In Melbourne 2026, drivers were doing it lap after lap. The Russell versus Leclerc battle in the opening stint was outstanding. Two great drivers fighting hard, clean, strategic, using every tool available. Russell himself said racing can actually be better with these rules, because you have to think about when you use your energy, making every move more meaningful. Leclerc said it is a different way to race, thinking multiple steps ahead rather than just being brave under braking. And Hamilton, who had a superb race even finishing fourth, said he loved it and called the car really fun to drive. Rookie Arvid Lindblad scored points on debut and was described by multiple observers as the most impressive driver of the race. Feisty, fast, fighting for every position with composure that belied his age. Gabriel Bortoleto scored points for Audi on their Formula One debut. Behrman finished 7th, best of the rest, and called it a special feeling. There are genuine things to like here. The question is whether the good parts can survive while the dangerous and artificial parts get fixed. F1 cannot rely on hope. The closing speed danger is real and acknowledged by a world champion. The qualifying problem, cars visibly slowing down on straights by up to 60 kilometers per hour to recharge, is not acceptable as a permanent feature. The artificial overtaking dynamic, where positions swap based on battery state rather than driver skill, undermines the credibility of every pass. But here is the more optimistic truth. This is race 1. Every team is still learning how to operate these cars at the limit. The energy maps will improve. The turbo spool procedures will improve. The qualifying issue is circuit-specific and at least partly solvable. Fred Vasseur said the first 10 laps were the most exciting he had seen in 10 years of Formula One. And he was not just saying that because his cars were at the front. He was right. The raw ingredients for something spectacular are in these cars. The starts are dramatic. The battles are real. The car can follow. What Formula One needs to do now is strip away the parts that make it feel artificial and dangerous. And fast. Because if they don't, the drivers will keep saying it louder and louder. And eventually, the audience will start agreeing with them. So, after race 1 of 2026, are you more hopeful or more worried? Did Melbourne show you a new era of genuine racing? Or did it show you a set of regulations that need serious work before they fulfill their potential? Drop your take in the comments. Subscribe if you want the full breakdown of every race this season, because China is next week and it is a sprint weekend. This story is just getting started. Stay tuned. Peace.